Good.
Okay.
Welcome and good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is the 8th webinar of the CESP Observatory of India series on the journey through contemporary India, dialogue with experts. Today we discuss a very new and fresh issue, that is the new European Union strategic agenda for India. We have three eminent speakers. The first one is Hervé Delphine, Ambassador of the European External Action Service to India and Bhutan, who will describe the agenda, the new agenda. And then this will be discussed by Saurabh Kumar, who is Ambassador of India to the Kingdom of Belgium, the Grand Duchy of Luxembourg, and the European Union. And then Silvia Costantini, head...
Yes.
Yes, welcome, Silvia. Silvia will also comment. She is the head of South Asia Office at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. I resume the usual rules of these webinars. So the speaker, the keynote speaker, will have 20 minutes to give us a flavor of a very rich document just released. And then Ambassador Kumar and Silvia Costantini will have the 10 minutes each to comment, give their suggestion and priorities from their point of view. So the floor now goes, and another thing, please post your questions to the Q&A box. So we will be pick up them after the speakers, and we'll have a discussion the last 20 minutes of the webinar. So now the floor goes to Hervé Delphine, who has had almost 30 years of service in the European Union external relations. He held a Master of Political Science and Contemporary History from the Institut d'études polytechniques and a Master in European Studies from the College of Europe in Bruges. Please, Ambassador Delphine, the floor is yours, 20 minutes to explain and describe this important document.
So, buongiorno a tutti, grazie mille per la sua invitazione, Sergio Lugarezzi, and I'm glad to join you and to have online the Excellency and dear friend Ambassador Saurabh Kumar, and indeed Mrs. Costantini, also from the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. At the risk of disappointing you, I don't really want to enter into an exegesis of the joint communication, because it might be pretty boring, actually. I thought it could be a bit more useful for audience to explain the context in which this document has sort of landed on the political agenda. In a way, we are in this moment where stars are aligned, or planets are aligned, as the President von der Leyen said it when she met Prime Minister Modi on the occasion of the unprecedented visit of the College of the Commission in February this year, because basically she was referring to a rare phenomenon where we had 7 planets of our solar system which were aligned. It's called the Great Parade of the Planets. And she thought it was a fitting image to describe the dynamics of the EU-India relationship. And then fast forward to September, the Commission and the High Representative presented the joint communication on a new EU strategic agenda. It was on the 17th of September. And again, as a fortune, or some might say, and a sheer coincidence, the joint communication was published on the very day of the birthday of Prime Minister Modi. So, you see, maybe there is something with the stars as well. But the question is, that one may ask is, why did it take so much time? Because last year we celebrated 20 years of EU-India strategic partnership, and it's only now that we come with this new strategic agenda. And I think it's fair to look back and to see that at the time of the turn of the 21st century, the EU signed a series of strategic partnerships at the time, including with India. And probably at the time, they were more intent than content. And the purpose was really to engage with emerging economies in the context of a high-speed globalization process. And at that time, India was the 10th largest economy. It had a GDP of 700 billion US dollar. The EU, in comparison, was then with UK at 12 trillion US dollars. Now, again, more fast forward, things have changed since then because on a scale and in ways that would have probably been totally unfathomable for the peoples back in 2004. And I think it owes to circumstances, to the vision of the leaders, to the will and the capacity to act. And I think we are at these junctures where all these factors come together and fit into this equation that gives this moment where we have a new EU-India strategic agenda to be adopted by the summit that will come early 2026. So let me cover these elements of circumstances, wills, and capacity in one after other, because then that can explain the content of this new EU-India strategic agenda, at least in the way the EU has formulated it, because that was EU's proposal. And of course, we will enter in a negotiation with the Indian side for firming up what we see as our common vision. But I will talk about the EU vision as proposed in the joint communication. So clearly, circumstances since 2004 have changed. We've seen it all. There is a great geopolitical reshuffling that is in place. I mean, it has been long, been laboring for the last decade. I mean, we see that the US and China are increasingly locked into what I would call a systemic competition, and it reverberates across the board. And this competition is particularly turbocharged by a technological race to ensure supremacy, and that is really at the core. There is a sort of weaponization of everything, and including interdependence. We saw also a rise of national politics, and it's driven by identities, communal reflexes, historical claims. And so this return of power politics is really leading to a retreat also of multilateralism. So in this environment of tensions, of transformation, I think what we see is that the EU and India are in different positions. I mean, not least geographically, but at the core, they really face similar challenges. And I think their economic development and their security are under stress. And our respective visions of a rule-based and cooperative global order is being undermined. And so when President von der Leyen was here in Delhi back in February this year on the occasion of the college visit, she did a keynote speech where she said about EU-India as the consequential partnership for the 21st century. And I quote what she said then is, the world is fraught with danger, but I believe this modern vision of great power competition is an opportunity for Europe and India to reimagine their partnership. And in many ways, EU and India are uniquely placed to respond to this challenge together. So I think that reflects a deeper assessment on the EU side that EU and India offer to each other important strategic options. So we offer each other the possibility to de-risk the economic turmoil and the security uncertainties we both face. And we are also very complementary. So we can tap into our complementarities and combine our respective strengths and skills to serve each other's interests. So this is where we are, but this strategic compulsion has been somehow for some time on the EU in the making, because we proposed the relaunch of the FTA negotiation, the free trade agreement, back in 2022. And it is also, sorry, at the time that the EU proposed the setting up of a Trade and Technology Council. We only have one with the US and the second one with India. with India. So that was part of this reassessment, I would call it, from the EU to engage with India more decisively. And you know, also maybe we did not see so much India as a compelling strategic partner, but I think it was also clear that the EU was not necessarily very well positioned on India's own strategic horizon. And I'd like to recall the famous quote and phrase of Dr. Jaishankar, the Indian External Affairs Minister, in his book, In the India Way, Strategies for an Uncertain World. He say, it is time to engage America, manage China, cultivate Europe, reassure Russia, bring Japan into play. But he also told us, he said, yeah, probably we have neglected the EU for too long. And I think the reverse comment is the same, but on the EU side. So I think there was also an element is on the Indian side, but why should we engage with the EU when it's easier to engage with member states or smaller group? And I think the answers fundamentally lies in the fact that the EU and its member states are also facing this epochal change I mentioned, and they face the dramatic necessity of reviewing and adapting their strategic sense. And so if you think of Brexit, COVID, Russia's war aggression on EU borders, a more unpredictable and challenging transatlantic partnership, growing imbalances and distortion in the relationship with China, which is increasingly of a strategic rival more than a partner, I think we have to redefine and revisit our idea of what is strategic autonomy and European sovereignty. So in short, EU member states more and more have to frame, and they feel compelled to frame their strategic projection in the European context, because there is an element of size and weight on the global scene that matters. And I think this sense of the assessment of the EU and its member states of India as a strategic partner has also been in reverse image. The India has seen this EU more as a valuable strategic partners, and not least in the light of India's own what I would call strategic conundrum and significant challenges posed by China, by the US as we see it, but also managing the relationship with Russia. So in short, there was circumstances of necessity, de-risking, hedging by diversifying the partnership, and affirmation of our greater strategic autonomy that has provided a great impetus to firming up new strategic ties. But so that's the circumstances. But you need a vision. You need to frame a project that can guide the relationship. And I think this is where the joint communication that we released in September comes in, because it clearly articulates such a political vision for the relationship. And it also proposes a very concrete, very well articulated policy agenda. And so you have the 5 pillars, prosperity and sustainability that aims at boosting trade, investment, economic ties. And there is a clear focus on supply chain and green transition, clean transition. The second pillar is technology and innovation, because I think we have a common interest in working on critical emerging technologies, if not to only to reduce our respective dependencies, and also the possibility to leapfrog and into new technologies by combining our respective strength. The third pillar is the security and defense, and I think we see how even though we are confronted with 2 different strategic theaters, security theater in Europe and in the Indo-Pacific, we see clearly overlapping security interest, a landscape of threats, which is common. So interest in exchanging and cooperating on security and defense matters, and not just in terms of operation, but also in terms of defense industry. The fourth pillar is the connectivity and global issues. I think EU and India, I like to describe them as 2 bridgeheads, and they are the ones who have convening power that can bring together global South and willing partners that really want to address the question of global governance and address these transnational challenges more than others. So I think that there is a lot that we can do. We have a responsibility to act and possibly a convening power to act. And the last pillar of the strategy is what we call the enablers for our partnership to thrive. It has to do with people, circulation of talents, business community, think tanks, and I'll come back to that. So in each of these pillars, you will see there is a lot of concrete proposal and initiative for joint action that could really deliver tangible results. So we are, for example, proposing development of innovation hubs for mobilization of startups. We are also proposing the setup of the blue valleys that we consider as conducive platforms for private sector engagement in selected value chain. We are also articulating a new vision for the Trade and Technology Council on critical supply chain like semiconductors, clean tech, biotech. We also are looking, we were discussing yesterday, there was a meeting, the high-level dialogue on mobility and migration that took place here in Delhi. And we were discussing, what we can do to facilitate the mobility of skilled workers. There are needs in Europe, and India produces and generates many skilled workers that are on the job market. We also aiming at signing up a security and defense partnership, which would be an enabler for defense industry cooperation. And just take another example. For example, today in Brussels, there is a meeting, the first ever EU-India dialogue on space, so which also a new frontier. So yesterday was mobility, today is space. It's just like a living example of how much is in the making at the moment. So if you look at the joint communication as a whole, it's nothing more than greater connection and integration between our ecosystem. So we are not in the game of short-term hedging. It's not like we just tactically, opportunistically adapt to the dynamics and after we'll fall back into another. There is no way back. And I think this is a long-term investment. And I think that is what is articulated in this. And for that, it's a vision, but you need the political will behind. And I think it doesn't fall from the sky. I think the President von der Leyen, in our political guidelines that were presented for the new commission in July 2024, highlighted the importance of developing a new EU strategic agenda. So it was already a signal, and we walked the talk. And the visit of the college to Delhi, I mean, the first of its kind to a third country, it shows really literally that we walked the talk. It was a powerful message of confidence and readiness on the EU side. And so I think the leaders are fully behind, and I think that's key. Prime Minister Modi said the EU and India are natural strategic partners. So I think there is maturity that is sort of coming, and the sense that our partnership can deliver mutual benefits, but also not just for two geographies, but also, we can have also a responsibility more globally. I mean, if you think that EU-India combined, it's 25% of the world population. Yeah, admittedly, India is doing the heavy lifting here, but we also have 25% of the world GDP, and the EU is the biggest trading partner of India in goods. We both stand as cooperative global actors. We are attached to global rules and a rule-based order. We have largely converging interests in the Indo-Pacific. As I mentioned earlier, we want to address global challenges and promote public goods. And now there is the COP33. So climate action, sustainable development, financing for development, AI governance. India will host the AI Summit, Action Summit, Impact Summit next February. AI space governance. I think we both reject wars of aggression and terrorism. I think we also want to de-risk from economic coercion. We are the two largest democracies, so we attach importance to the promotion of human values. And I think both, if you put all this together, then you realize why this relation, when we pull together, we can act as pole of stability and ballast in this very uncertain multipolar world. So that is, I think, the compelling case. But I think we need also to be clear-eyed because we are not aligned on everything. So like the Russia is clearly, there is a Russia question. I mean, and it's specifically to Russia's aggression of Ukraine. It's not Russia per se, it's the Russia's aggression against Ukraine, and which has also expanded in an aggressive attitude towards Europe. And we've seen European airspace has been violated, drones, air flights, hybrid warfare with the submarine cables. So there are questions that have been posed, you know, when on the European side, there was a lot of questioning and surprise when there was a small military contingent of India that took part in this military exercise in Russia, Zapad 2025, or the question of Russian oil, which India grew increasingly dependent. So these were very much in the talk, you know. So ending the war in Ukraine with Russia, engaging in a ceasefire is ultimately what everybody wants. But certainly Putin doesn't see it this way. And the thing is that India has pronounced itself for peace on several occasions, and we have always welcomed that and encouraged that. I mean, Russia is a strategic partner for India, and actually President Putin will be in Delhi on the 5th and 6th of December. And India has also relations with Ukraine. Prime Minister Modi visited Kiev in August 2024. So I think as EU and India deepen their mutual ties, they will have to square this Russia question. I think India certainly has to realize more than it has done in the past how much Russia is a security threat to the EU. But also, I think conversely, the EU should also be more sensitive to the geopolitical space and constraint within which India has to operate. So working together for peace is decisively the way ahead. I think also there are other areas where sensitivity needs to be managed and better understanding is on the question of democracy and human rights. I think Europe and India are what they are because they share a belief in democracy, human rights, individual dignity, equality, and they put people at the center. And our cultures are being shaped by this sense of unity and diversity. And so these shared value are admittedly under threat. I mean, in Europe, in India, around the world, and so this shared value, I think we should cherish them because they are a foundational element of our partnership, and they give, if you want, a deep meaning to what we stand for. And I think the engagement of EU towards India has also something to do with this common cradle of democracy. And I think we need, as we deepen strategic ties, it will demand sensitivity and respect to navigate our differences, accepting that we are not fully aligned, and preserving our space for honest conversation. And the last point is really about our agency to deliver. We have now, we've been working until now on what we call the Joint Roadmap 2020-2025. It was a list of over 118 actions. I think we reached a completion rate of about 80%, but probably there were too many actions. And now we need to deliver. The delivery is certainly on the FTA. I think the negotiators feel the breathing in their neck to come to seal an agreement on the FTA. And the next one will be to deliver this new EU strategic agenda or roadmap at the summit early next week. So, and for this, it's not just the government, and I will finish with that. It's mobilization of stakeholders, it's people to people. India tops education and research exchange program, Marie Curie, Erasmus, is the mobility of workers we discussed yesterday, is business to business interaction. We set up a new Federation of European Business in India, that is the Chamber of Commerce. We want to develop a EU-India Business Forum, and it is also you, CESPI, it's the think tanks and the experts. I think we need more. We need to increase our mutual literacy on each other. I think there is a dearth of experts on India in Europe, and I would probably say the same about about European experts in Delhi. So we need to create more familiarity to update our knowledge and develop this better understanding, because sometimes we have some more collective blind spots. So really, in conclusion, I think there is this strategic convergence between EU and India that has never been greater. It's driven by the convergence of our geopolitical, economic, security interest. I think we need also to see the complementarity of our respective needs and assets, and also the scale we can offer to each other. and last but not least, the will of our leaders. So there is this, what I call the trust and the thrust in our relationship that can really bring the strategic partnership to a new level. And this is what we would like to be articulated in this new EU strategic agenda. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Delphine. That was really great. I appreciated your approach to give us more the deep spirit of the document instead of the pure description of the document. You mentioned the alignment of stars, the genesis of the document, the 5 pillars, the need for political will. You mentioned several of the issues contained in the document, the security, innovation, people, connection of people. But we also didn't hide the fact that India and EU are not aligned on everything. That is a great base for discussion. So with the next speaker will be Ambassador Saurabh Kumar. He also has a great experience, almost 30 years of experience in diplomacy. He has been in Iran and Myanmar, and he held a master in technology from the Indian Institute of Technology. So Ambassador Kumar, now the floor is yours for your comments and how you see this document from the point of view of India. You have 10 minutes, please.
So being the second speaker, my job is a bit more challenging considering that Ambassador Delphine, my friend Harvey, gave such a comprehensive overview of where we are and how we got here. But let me start by congratulating CHESPI for organizing this event. And when I say it, I actually mean it, because when I came here in February of last year, one of the very perceptible things which I felt was the lack of dialogue as far as India-EU relationship is concerned. Sitting in Brussels, one saw, the engagement and the kind of energy which was sucked into dealing with the Russia-Ukraine crisis. There were concerns about China, elections in the US were around the corner, the results they produce, so that was those were the areas, which were occupying Europe, and then whatever was left, I think India, Europe, India-EU relationship fitted in that. Now, from then to now, it has been a very, very significant movement. And alignment of stars was mentioned by Harvey, it was mentioned by you. But as you can imagine, stars do not do all the trick. There was strong political intent, and there was very deft diplomacy, particularly on the European Union side, and which set the ball rolling and has brought us to where we are. Now, the visit of the College of Commissioners was an unprecedented development. It was the college was very warmly received by the Prime Minister and our ministers in Delhi. There was a kind of a vision document which came out of that visit, which ultimately led to the joint communication which Harvey referred to and spoke briefly about. Now, the word joint tends to be confusing because people tend to think that is India-EU joint document. It is not. It is jointedness amongst the European institutions. And I must say that, this is important, because the other experience which I have had in my close to 2 years out here is that while we engage with different EU institutions, the pace of different EU institutions in their engagement or in their outlook towards India tends to vary. So having a joint EU document on a strategy towards India is hugely important because it gives a common direction to the EU institutions vis-a-vis their approach towards India. As far as jointedness between India and EU is concerned, as Arve just mentioned, we would be having a summit, and this document provides a good basis for developing an India-EU document, on which both the sides would be working together. Now, it was already mentioned, but let me just very briefly mention why India-EU relationship becomes so hugely important and vital and significant at this point of time. One, I think we are living, as all of us know, in a very uncertain and very unpredictable world today. So India-EU relationship, the strength of India-EU relationship, the closeness in India-EU relationship could be a factor of stability as far as the global situation is concerned. We are also seeing references to a global order which is centered around a G2 framework. Now, if you look at it from that perspective too, I think it becomes very, very important for India and EU to work together to strengthen multilateralism and to see that the world moves with a greater momentum and pace in a multipolar direction. Third is, what all of us know is the challenges which we have faced vis-a-vis global supply chains. I think the supply chains are geographically concentrated. All of us are working towards more resilient, more diversified supply chains, and EU-India partnership can play a major role on that front. And again, Ambassador Delphin mentioned some of the areas in which we can do that. And then lastly, our partnership, as again was mentioned, is based on certain principles, certain values. It is based on democracy, but equally importantly, it is based on trusted partnership. We look upon each other as trusted partners, and particularly in the area of technology innovation, I think we can do a lot more based on this trusted nature of our relationship. And one last point again out here, which was again mentioned, is complementarity. India has a very young population. Our average age is around 28 years. We are growing at a significant rate of 6% plus. Europe, on the other hand, has innovation, has great industrial depth, but you have an aging population. You need markets, you need growth, and the two sides coming together, I think, would help each other in that sense too. So I would just go back from the perspective of my being in Brussels. It was when President von der Leyen, in her second term, came out with her political guidelines. I think there was a specific reference in that to a new agenda vis-a-vis India. And from that point, we saw steps being taken by both the sides to bring the relationship to where it is today. Very briefly, before I conclude, I would just like to touch upon what Arve also mentioned about not complete alignment in our relations. I think in any mature and intensive engagement, 100% alignment is very, very difficult. I think the important part is our ability to talk to each other, to put across our respective points of view, and see how we can bring about as much convergence as possible. So Russia is something on which we have dialogue. We speak to each other. Harvey mentioned the incident about Zapad exercises. There was huge engagement between the two sides to get to know each other's position. All I would say on this front, apart from the need to engage, as our relationship matures, as we look at issues in a more through the geopolitical lens, I think we would find convergence on these issues. But what is important is to engage with each other and continue the conversation. So I do not know how much time I have taken, but if I have been brief, I think we can have more time for question and answers, but I would like to stop out here. Thank you.
Thank you. Perfectly on time. 40 seconds earlier. Great. Thank you so much. And thank you also for reminding us that the joint agenda is joint between two European institutions, but is a brick toward the more important comprehensive strategic agenda that will be signed hopefully soon between the two entities. And now I would like to give the floor to Silvia Costantini, who is the head of South Asia office at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation. She has this position since December 2023. And she has an important experience in multilateral diplomacy that intersect with some of the previous speakers' experience. So she has not been only Consul General in Montreal in Canada, but she has also been the Italian permanent representative to the International Civil Aviation. And aviation is one of the many issues addressed in this EU strategic agenda on India. She has also had experience in Brussels at the European External Action Service and has been political advisor to the EU delegation in India and Bhutan. So really intersecting with some of you. Silvia, the floor is yours for your comment, probably to give the perspective, priorities of the Italian Foreign Affairs on these documents. You have 10 minutes, please.
Grazie. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, according to the time zone. It's actually interesting to be kind of a bridge here. First of all, let me, of course, have the pleasure to thank His Excellency, the Ambassador of the European Union. I was in that house two predecessors or three predecessors of you ago. And of course, it's a huge pleasure also to address and to see and to be here with His Excellency Saurabh Kumar, because we met last time in Brussels, running in the corridors for the steering committee of IMEC. So, and it's true, I somehow put forward the agenda, the joint agenda. And when I say the joint, I'm sorry, I'm having technical issues. Me. I don't know how to solve this. I'm trying, but it seems difficult. So I guess you can keep on hearing, right?
Yes. Better to hear you, and we don't see you. That's a
no, okay. I'm trying to find a solution, but apparently I don't know why it gets off and on. So as I was saying, because I had the privilege of serving in the European Union, a delegation to India and Bhutan in 2011-15, when we were implementing the Joint Action Plan 2005-2008. So this new strategic EU agenda, which I commend CESPI for organizing this webinar about, of course, does not come out of the blue. We have had 60 years of relations between the EU and India, over 30 years of strong relations. And if it's true that the planet's aligned and there is a huge and a progressive convergence in the views and in the approaches of India and the EU to several global issues, of course, as it goes without saying, we are different actors in the global arena, and obviously we have, just for geopolitical reasons, different interests. We might be, from the European Union side, more interested in what happens in our eastern neighborhood, as well as in our southern neighborhood. And so is India, interested in what happens in its eastern and western neighborhood, as well as in its southern neighborhood, obviously. So there are many similarities in the ways we approach the world scenario. So this new strategic agenda, of course, has blocking and most important pillars, obviously. And again, of course. So His Excellency, the ambassador of India to the European Union, have highlighted already the importance of EU strategic partnerships. More on that. What I will focus on is that simply those that are the 5 big pillars of, so the 4 plus the enabler one of the European Union, which is prosperity and sustainability to boost trade and investment, strengthening supply chain and economic security, and advancing the clean transition and resilience, is indeed, of course, a huge pillar for the Italian bilateral relations with India. So goes for technology and innovation, supporting critical emerging technologies, advancing a conducive digital environment, and promoting research cooperation is indeed at the European Union and India level, as well as the bilateral Italian and India level. The same goes for security and defense. If the European Union and India are deepening their engagement on regional security, countering traditional and hybrid threats, and boosting defense industrial cooperation, so is Italy-India relation going. I am happy to announce that we recently ratified on the Italian side the bilateral defense agreement. So this opens the way for further engagement also in terms of boosting defense industrial cooperation. And then when we go to connectivity and global issues, in relation to strengthening regional connectivity, promoting cooperation in third countries, and shaping effective global. And so is and are Italy, India. So of course, when then there is a pillar, and we need it also in the bilateral, in our bilateral engagement, the so-called enabler across pillars. So expanding, in the past, this was mostly related to, let's say, people to people and similar topics. So only business community and reinforce institutional architecture. We are doing the same. So let me find a way to highlight what are the Italian priorities, which of course reflect into the EU-India relations from the Italian side and with the Italian flavor. So first and foremost, the strategic political engagement, the political dialogue and the cooperation that have been strengthened. They have never ever been in their existence as strong as they are now. Our Prime Minister have met 6 times in the last 2 years and a few months. And so goes for our Foreign Minister. And my Foreign Minister is going to go again to New Delhi and Mumbai in December. When it comes to the economic cooperation, trade, investment, and economic policy dialogue have hugely expanded. And they continue to do so. Of course, when it comes to trade, Italy is more than a supporter of the finalization of the free trade agreement. Of course, it has to be an agreement. And flexibility, we have to do, we're in the final step of this. So I know that His Excellency Kumar is doing his utmost to also convince New Delhi that everything, huge flexibility has to be shown by both sides. And I know that basically, I guess, there are relentless negotiator. There's a kind of a navette, shuttle diplomacy going on. I have never seen so many visits. So I commend His Excellency Delfin, because I guess that there is a huge, I wouldn't say plethora, but huge increase of visits if I compare this with the, in my years in New Delhi. So Excellency Cravigno was not really, as we say, losing any time of his agenda. I guess your agenda must be even more full now. So obviously this means, and as Ambassador Kumar was saying, and I would even allow myself to use another usual word and usual sentence we say, it takes two to tango. We cannot tango alone. We have to, and I think we'll be the best dancers in the world. And perhaps, you will allow me, and I hope I'm not going to be too Indian-ized in what I'm saying. We have to do maybe a tango in Bollywood sauce, in the sense that it has both cultures that come together. So, of course, as I said, trade, investment, economic policy dialogue that I've expanded, and of course, scientific and technical cooperation has developed. We also have started the first science dialogue, scientific dialogue. We only held it with very few countries in the world. We are thinking of strengthening further cultural and people-to-people links and initiatives. I was last Her Excellency Dani Rao, whom Ambassador Kumar knows well, welcoming the Secretary Culture. And India will be present at the Venezia Biennale next May. So these are concrete examples on how really in 360 degrees we have developed and we are developing our relations. And I'm very proud to be here, having served in the European Union, so knowing basically and really having contributed at the time in making, I am the mother, and Niels Kahneman is the father of the Common Agenda on Migration and Mobility. And I'm very proud, almost basically, that I negotiated for 4 years. Then at the time with Moya, Minister of Overseas Indian Affairs, until Vani Rao was able to insert Moya into MEA. And these are institutional changes which can make the difference. So what is very important, I would say that both India and the European Union have really the best actors playing and dancing tango together. In terms of people to people, it goes without saying that we have to increase, and we want to increase the number of students in Italy, for instance, in the whole of the European Union, of course, but we are very, very interested also when it comes to a single member state. And of course, I can only speak about Italy, but I'm sure, because I'm always in touch with the French colleague, the German colleagues, and so on and so forth, that this is the same. So in this sense, it is a joint strategic agenda when it comes to the European Union. So it's a joint communication of the European Union. And of course, it is going to be soon a more joint EU-India agenda, because this is what in the forthcoming summit, I'm so glad that the summit is going to be immediately the day after India's Independence Day, and that is going to be really a great momentum to further the relations. And then when it comes to Italy and India bilateral, I think that the Modi excellent relations speak by itself. And of course, I'm not that much into the social media, but I know that both Secretary Culture was telling me the other evening that that my Prime Minister is hugely known in India and hugely respected in India. So, and last but not the least, I'm proud to say that in Italy lives, and this I was very proud when I was dealing with the EU-India common agenda on migration and mobility, because in Italy lives the second largest Indian diaspora in continental Europe. And at the time when I was there, because we've just been beaten now, so we are in the second, we have the silver medal, not the gold medal anymore. We had the gold medal until a few years ago, but now the gold medal goes to Germany, simply because Germany has been able to finalize an agreement to facilitate higher end skill mobility. So, for instance, in the last joint economic partnership that is a follow-up of the joint strategic action plan between Italy and India, which was adopted by the two leaders, Meloni and Modi, in Rio de Janeiro in 2024. We have 10 pillars. Those who are interested can go through that. I will not enumerate this. But we are working also on a joint roadmap. We haven't yet finalized it because, of course, joint means, as Ambassador Kumar was saying, two to tango. But we're working on that. And relentless are the efforts that Her Excellency Vani Rao, my Director General Nicoletta Bombardiere, my Director Alessandra Schiavo, and myself with my whole team are doing to make sure that there is an advancement of Italy-India relations for the benefit and in line with of EU-India new strategic agenda. I don't know if I would like to leave the floor for questions.
Thank you, Silvia. Very good. You also suggested a very interesting way of saying the tango in Bangalore sauce.
Bollywood sauce.
Okay, yeah, Bollywood sauce. Sorry, and you explained the Italian priorities and developments. So now we don't have much time, but we have a couple of questions in the box. Please, if you have questions, continue to post in the Q&A box. But I would like to pick the two questions up for the speakers. The first one comes from Rakesh Gundala, who is the president of the Indian Youth Association. And he would like to know, to understand if there are programs between India and EU that can support association like this one. And second, what suggestions do you have for young Indians in the EU for better integration and contribution towards mutual and sustainable growth? The second question comes from Mario Pezzini, who is a member of our steering committee, and he would like to know specifically on the issue on global governance and the reforms of multilateral institutions. What can be the next steps in the relationship between the EU and India? So I would like to have a second round. You also please feel free to comment on what the other speaker said. Maybe Hervé, you want to start? As the question on the students maybe is addressed in the joint communique. Please, do you have to unmute, Hervé?
No, I said probably Ambassador Kumar would know much better than me the Indian diasporas and the presence of the Indian community, and especially students across the EU. Just to say, I mean, there are about 90,000 Indian students at present in Europe, and you will see this is a trend that's going to go, upwards. India has scored traditionally, historically, always top, number one or top three for Marie Curie and Erasmus, as I mentioned. I flagged off the last Erasmus Plus batch. I think there is a great interest because your studies in Europe are, I would say, of high quality. It's affordable. It opens life experience and also languages. Because for long, I think the Indian students would go naturally toward the Anglo-Saxon world, and I think there was a language affinity. But what I see more and more is In the language is part of the skilling. It's not just learning a language, it's part of the skilling. And I told the Indian youth, I said, when you look at Europe and the potential of the EU, India, so language become a skill. So the more you learn about European languages, you are actually increasing your own employability. But of course, there are aspects that have also in Europe we have to develop. I mean, because these Indian diasporas have all been, you know, friendly ones, non-problematic ones, but you know they tend to live together. And I was explaining yesterday at the MHA how they like to find themselves. And it's not, you don't attract a high Indian talent just by a one person. You have, there is an ecosystem, and you need to be culturally sensitive to that as well in the way we design packages with the family, with the possibility to work for one extra year and all this sort of. It's not just like you jump. So I think there is a lot to be done, but the short and the long is that this is an area where I see it will be a game changer in the coming years. I mean,
Yes.
clearly, where we are just at the cusp of something where if you look at the numbers of Indian students, researchers, academic in US, Canada, Australia, and the UK, there will be a huge catch up with continental Europe. So I think that's what I wanted to say. And as far as concrete exchanges, I think we will also see, and I really hope that there will be joint EU-India youth association emerging. I think it would be great. It doesn't have always to come from the top. You know, I really hope that the more we have alumni from university, they will get organized, and they will be also, I would say, a positive lobby group for the relationship. Over.
Thank you. Saurabh, you certainly have some answer on this.
Yeah, no, at least sitting, Arve mentioned the European continental Europe picture, but sitting in Brussels, you know, we noticed that the number of students, particularly on the technology side, who are coming to Belgian institutions is growing. They organize themselves well, and I think in each of the capitals, the embassy tries to keep in touch with the Indian student associations, which would be there. We do it here in Brussels. It is very typical of Indians to organize themselves based on the state they come from, the language they speak. So our effort has been to let them do as they want to, but also to have an engagement with all these bodies, and that has worked well out here. What I would like to tell this gentleman is that it's important to keep in touch. I think at least the association members who hold senior positions to keep in touch with the embassy so that two-way dialogue goes on. Embassy benefits from your presence out there and take care of the difficulties, if any, which are there, and you can benefit from the embassy's presence out there in terms of the difficulties you might have.
Thank you, Ambassador Kumar. Silvia, you already mentioned you have done a lot of work on this, so you may have some suggestions and answers to the questions.
Sure. Well, I would suggest first and foremost, of course, well, this is something I would really push for in the EU-India agenda. And I could, it's not, of course, related to the EU-India, but everyone, as the historian Fernand Braudel was saying, avoir été est une condition pour être. Having been is a condition for being. So I have been Italian consul general in Montreal, and in Montreal, I organized les états généraux des étudiants et des étudiantes italiens à Montréal. So maybe that's something that we could do at the European Union level, to have the state general of the students or the European student, or maybe we could do it, you know, at national level. Of course, this might take some organizational time and forces and efforts. but also think tanks can be interested in this, because of course in the end there are also different kinds of students. And I have been myself, and this we have also in common with His Excellency Delphin, an alumni of the College of Europe. So we know we have, well, though I did Natlin, I did Poland. And then and we have a huge alumni association. So of course, as these different students go to different universities and academic institutes and research institutes and so on and so forth, of course it's a bit difficult. But for instance, in Italy we have the conference of the rectors of the Italian universities. So maybe we could do something similar at the EU level. Of course, this should come in other line councils of the country, or line working groups of the council, not necessarily the external relations one, which are the ones that he is in charge. But maybe this is something that we could put forward, because this will make the difference when it comes to people relations, and when it comes to building on our future relations. Because with all due respect to the participants here, and please, I don't want to be saying this in a wrong way, but we are the present and soon to be the past of the EU-India and Italy-India relations. But the students and the youth are the present and the future of this. So we absolutely have to invest on the youth. I absolutely support the youth, and I've been supporting the youth in every single... when I was in New Delhi, for instance, at the time when we had a little peek down of the EU-India relations for known reasons, which I will not even mention, in the decade 2012-2022, I remember that Ambassador Cravigno sent me out to do outreach. And I did 55 events and spread awareness about the EU and India to 10,000 people. So, you know, if one person can reach out to 10,000 people, let alone what the whole of the European Union can do to the whole of EU, India, and Italy, of course, when it comes to Italy-India relations.
Great, thank you, Silvia. So it's my fault. I maybe shouldn't have pulled together two questions, but there was another question on the global governance and the reform of multilateral institutions. I don't know if you briefly, any of you want to say something on this.
Maybe I will chip in very quickly. I think there is untapped potential. I mean, in the sense that you know, India has been the co-initiator, co-designer of initiatives like the International Solar Alliance, or the coalition of resilient infrastructures, disaster infrastructures. And I think these are good examples of basically where EU and India can team up and develop these kind of things. Coming back to what I said earlier, we also just signed an administrative agreement for trilateral cooperation, basically in third countries. So I think there is untapped potential. And I think if we were to elevate our engagement at the multilateral level where we are, the bilateral level, that would be something. And I think that there is a reservoir of influence where both India and Europe can sort of mutually reinforce each other. So these are the ones. I mean, and that was mentioned by Mrs. Constantini. Let's not forget about IMEC, which is one key proposal here in the equation. And here also, we also have very concrete projects like the Blue Raman cable, submarine cable, or we were now looking for a green shipping corridor. So it's not just words, there is concrete things that we need to flesh up, and you will see. And when I say global gateway and all these projects I make, I would like to insist what I see also particularly encouraging is the Team Europe, is EU and the member states. Here, you know, you have the 27 member states. I mean, we are all aligned, moving forward. There is a great consensus, and all what we do, whether investment, you may have, financial institutions from member states teaming up with European financial institutions like EIB, or with EU grants for de-risking the investment. It all comes together. Also in the area of culture, as it was mentioned, we just finished the EU Film Festival, which was really talking about Bollywood and all this. I mean, it has now 30 years. So, and it has really become part of the cultural landscape here. It was in Delhi, now it's in Bangalore and in Hyderabad. So I think there is also this cultural dimension, and Italy is very well placed also. There is a lot of potential. So in a way, the sky is the limit. And as maybe Silvia said, we are the present and probably already the past, but I beg to believe that still Sorab and I have something to deliver here before.
Oh, me too for sure. And to complement what you were saying, Your Excellency, just in line and to highlight what it is really in the practical terms, the alignment really of the European Union and its member states. As Ambassador Delphine highlighted CDRI, we as Italy are contributing with a special project, specific project with Italian civil protection for the benefit of India and South Asia countries. For instance, Ambassador Delphine was mentioning ISA, International Solar Alliance. We are giving a contribution, bilateral contribution in this framework as Italy. Ambassador Delphine was highlighting the EU, well, the cultural side, the EU-India Film Festival, which I had the pleasure once to inaugurate one of its sessions. I don't even remember which city. Many cities have the film festival going. The same goes with the Italian Film Festival. And last year, I'm looking at that because it was the first time that we have the Italian Film Festival, the Indian Film Festival in Italy. So absolutely, we are really, it's really a team, Europe, really working. And of course, it goes without saying, we will soon be the past. We're not yet the past. A decade more at least.
Yes.
Very good, very good. Thank you so much. Maybe, Saurabh, you want to say the last few words?
Yeah, just let me, I think, supplement what both the other speakers mentioned on governance side of it. While we might be having our differences on certain aspects of global trade, both of us have a commitment to support the multilateral global trading order, which is WTO. And we have had discussions as to how we can work towards that objective, including in the framework, India-EU framework, which exists. So there are a number of areas in which there is convergence as far as global governance is concerned. And this again fits into the larger framework which we had spoken of earlier. You know, as the world moves in the direction in which it is moving, I think the strengthening of India-EU partnership becomes very, very important for a variety of reasons, including in the context of global governance.
Thank you so much. So I would like to thank you all. We went, out for almost 10 minutes extra time. That
Prizes of success.
Exactly. And the audience, I see, remained the same. So certainly there's been a lot of interest. Thank you so much. Your contribution were very appreciated, very useful, I think. And I appreciated very much what Ambassador Delphine said. The spirit of the document is also know each other. And the aim of this observatory is to contribute as much as possible with its little role, but to contribute to this. So we will continue to organize events to know each other. And I hope to have you again here to discuss other agreements, other issues. As well, I invite the participants to stay tuned and to check what is coming next on this kind of initiative. Thank you again so much.